I've talked about how small conversations can have an impact on you, change the course of your life in a dramatic way, in a way you never would imagine when the conversation was taking place. There are three, though, that particularly stand out to me. One was when I was excluded from the State Department for medical reasons. I'd taken the tests, I passed all the tests, and then during the routine physical, they found some albumin in my urine. And only that when I went to Huntington, West Virginia, to visit with my uncle and his family, and in mentioning my issue and my problem, that my uncle said, "Oh, let me take you down and introduce you to the urologist who's in the same building where I work." Only I just told him when he asked, "What's up with you?" and I explained my situation. That urologist does a test, writes me a letter, clears up the problem, and I get in the Foreign Service, and I have this amazing 32-year career. Without that conversation, I would have been excluded, never would have been cleared up, and I would never have been a diplomat. While I'm in Vietnam, a second small conversation, a Canadian military officer, Major Tim Smith, wonderful, nice guy, comes on a trip visiting out to see how American pacification programs are going. And he's brought down to see me by helicopter pilots from the units that we work with. And I give him a briefing, and I take him out in villages, show him what we're doing. And then a month or two later, he sends an invitation saying, "Oh, we're having a party, a soiree on a Saturday evening in Saigon. Why don't you fly up?" And the pilots from the helicopter unit said, "We're flying up. Do you want to go with us?" And I thought, well, I don't know. But then I said, okay. They pick me up. I fly up. I go to the party, and that's where I meet my wife to be. And then the third conversation is in Washington, D.C. in 1999, when I had basically told John Ruan Sr. That the outline of what he had in mind and what he wanted of the World Food Prize and where I would fit in, not fit in, had been pretty vague, and so I wasn't coming to take on the job that they were discussing with me to become the new president of the World Food Prize. And John Ruan III happens to come to town for a meeting at the U.S. Chamber of Commerce and said, "Could we have dinner together?" And I go have dinner with him, and that conversation would lead to him convincing me that I should do that. And I turn in my retirement papers the next day after discussing it with my wife and retire from the State Department, come back to Des Moines. And then I arrive here, August of 1999, have my daughter with me. I have to put her in high school. She can start her junior year of high school. And I, sitting in this little two-person office down a dark back hallway in the Ruan II building, and I come face to face with the reality that the World Food Prize was not what I had thought it was. It was not internationally known. It attracted a very, very small number of people from outside of Iowa to come to it. It was a one-day event. And I wondered, what could really ever be made of this? It seemed so incredibly difficult, so impossible. To fulfill Norman Borlaug's wish to make it into the Nobel Peace Prize to fulfill John Ruan Sr.'s wish that it would be a center of American agriculture. And I thought, as in a number of other times in my career, I had taken a wrong turn. Eventually, I would discover that that wrong turn had led to the right road. Just as that wrong turn, which took me to Vietnam in 1968, I found the right road of being involved in rural development in developing countries, dealing with conflict in remote places. That's what I could be good at. Just like that assignment to the governor's office in Iowa, when I got to Des Moines and sitting there in the Capitol in this windowless office, no assignment, and I said, what a terrible wrong turn this was, only to find it was, the right road, that it provided me opportunities to work with the papal visit, U.S.-China establishment of diplomatic relations, to change Americans' refugee policy, to save the boat people, to rush food through Iowa shares to starving Cambodians, things I never, ever could have imagined. That was the right road. Going to Vienna, Austria, to the U.S. mission to the UN, to take on what was described as the worst job in the Foreign Service. Oh my gosh, what a terrible wrong turn turned into absolute right road. And like going off to be ambassador to Cambodia instead of the Philippines that I had been chosen for, but then fell through and felt like this was, in a certain sense, the wrong turn, but ended up to be the right road of confronting genocide, eradicating the Khmer Rouge. And so each one of those had a story, a small conversation along with it, and became kind of the thread that runs through my career, and was the theme when I gave my farewell address to the World Food Prize on October the 18th, 2019. Been a amazing 52 years of making the wrong turns. But somehow, the luck of the Irish, finding the right road.